Good evening, it's December 5th, 2018, this is the Town of Ossining Planning Board. Let's go around the table. We're missing a member today. If he comes in, we'll have him introduce himself again.
Jim Bacinas, board member.
Jim Watchin, Chair.
Gareth Huffman, board member.
Carolyn Stevens, board member.
Dan Ciarcia, consulting engineer to the planning board.
Sandy Anelli, secretary.
David Stolman, town planning consultant.
Kathy Zalantis, planning board attorney.
Okay, the first item on the agenda is Rayford, DeVerne and Sons, 52-1 Old Albany Close Road, architectural review, continuing the public hearing.
Hello, everybody. I think one of the last things that was outstanding was the rendering that Gareth had requested that we had submit. And I put together just an outline of the things that we have presented beforehand. And I'm here, and we have taken Lot 3 off the application. We are in the process of finding a better solution to that situation there. In regards to those extensive walls that are on the site. So if all else is okay with the board, I would ask and hope that we could give me a green light to go forward on Lot 1.
Okay, does the staff have any comments on this one?
Well, I have a few comments. There's some homework to be done, just very super minor stuff like identifying putting identification of the project on all the drawings, all the photographs, and all that kind of stuff, dating them, because we intend to include them in the resolution of approval, assuming that the board has a resolution of approval. So we need things identified and dated. But besides the homework, simple homework like that, I think there are two substantive issues left. One is the number of windows on the side elevations, which we've talked about before, and the other issue is whether or not the planning board is going to require that the driveway walls be natural stone as opposed to the block material. Those are the two remaining substantive issues, I believe.
On the windows, and I was telling Jim, I am including the windows. It's just that the modular company has already done some construction there, so it's going to be done on site. I am adding those windows to the sides of the house, like I agreed with you, and I will more than happy put natural stone along the driveway wall. I have no problem.
Okay.
And you can put that in a resolution. I'm fine with that.
Okay,
Okay?
so basically
Everything into the garage, from
all
the
the way in the
walls
front
into the
and the
garage.
sides into the garage?
Yes.
Natural stone?
Yes.
Okay, good, thank you.
Should look great from the street.
Yeah, good, thank you.
So
For your purpose,
Yes.
do you need anything?
yes,
documented on the
in the
drawing?
resolution, which I'll draft, I'll make sure that there's a condition that says that the elevation drawings, the facade drawings, have to show the windows. It's going to be one additional window on each side facade?
Yeah, one additional window on each side.
Okay, and I'll make sure that there's a condition in the resolution of approval that says that the front wall and the driveway walls have to be natural stone.
One addition to that, I noticed on your rendering that there's a double wall. So there's the two walls on the right and the left of the driveway, but then there's another wall that's like 5 or 6 feet right to the southwest.
That's right.
And for consistency, I'd like to see that in stone, natural stone as well.
The only problem, Gareth, is that wall goes the whole length of the house there. So at some point, I mean, you gotta go with the consistent stone that's gonna go right around the back. Now, the only thing I will tell you, and this was something that the engineer had mentioned to me, is the site plan is the worst case scenario. Based on, we went out there and we cleared all that bamboo out of the way, and he believes that once we get going, that the walls will be even less extensive. I know he's got 0 to 5 on there, so we're gonna minimize the walls, but the wall that's on the side of the property, if that has to go there in a worst case scenario, that wall goes all the way to the back and then around. So, you're gonna have half one thing, half the other material. I don't know if that's really gonna be aesthetically pleasing. it should be consistent.
So, I get your point, but I would counter that consistency side to side is just as important as consistency along that edge.
I know, but remember, that has to go all the way to the back,
Yeah.
you know what I mean?
But
It's gotta go all the way to the back.
But all the way to the front, too, right?
You know, worst case
And-
scenario on the site plan.
And as a matter of fact, you're probably going to be tearing down right there what is a natural stone wall to make this second wall. When the house that is in between your two lots was being renovated about 5 years ago, they built that wall.
Actually, I stand corrected. That wall does not go consistent all the way to the back, right?
It's
It
just sort of,
stops.
it's sort of U-shaped.
Yeah, so,
Right.
okay, we'll go with the stone there, the natural
Okay.
stone there.
That I'm.
As long as it's, like, I didn't want to go half,
Right.
stop, and then the block.
Right.
So, yes,
So it
so
goes
since
to
it's
that-
like a U-shape, that wall has to be there, then we'll do it in natural stone.
Okay,
No problem with that.
very good, thank you.
Any comments from the board this time?
No.
Any other comments from the staff?
No.
Dan? Okay. Great. Are there any members of the public on this matter? Okay, seeing none? Okay, what do we have to do with this?
So you could close the public hearing and authorize the drafting of the resolution of approval for the next meeting.
Okay, and this is only for lot one?
Lot one only, yes.
Okay.
Architectural review board approval.
Right, okay, could I have a motion to close the public hearing?
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Any objections? Thank you.
Okay, great, thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Take care.
Okay, next item on the agenda is the Vernon
Thank you.
Kaiser
Appreciate it.
General Electric Cedar Lane and Shady Lane Farm Road lot line amendment. Continue the public hearing.
Hello, I'm Ralph Escamanca, engineer to the General Electric Airman subdivision. We resubmitted, we had some comments from David Stallman. We resubmitted a plat, final plat. In the interim, David and I have had some discussion about any notes that need to be on the plat. David could respond, I suppose. just-
Sure, sure. So we have a resolution of approval drafted. It's a minor subdivision, so it's not preliminary or final, it's just a resolution of minor subdivision plat approval, which I'm trying to find. And there's just one minor change. Thanks. At the bottom of, I'm sorry, toward the bottom of page 2, condition 1B, as in David, says that there needs to be a bulk table on the plat. That was done by Ralph in the last drawing, doesn't need to be on the final version, so that's taken care of, that condition can be struck. Everything else remains intact in the resolution.
Okay.
And I believe there's a public hearing actually going on at the moment,
Yes,
so.
this is a public hearing.
Any comments from the board this time?
No.
No.
Any members of the public on this matter? Seeing none? Okay, what do we need to do on this?
You could close the public hearing and adopt the resolution of minor subdivision plat approval,
Very good. Could I have a motion?
So.
as amended.
Okay,
As amended.
move to close the public hearing.
Second.
Second. Any objections? None? Okay, thank you.
Move and now move to, for the adoption of the resolution.
As amended.
As
As
amended.
amended, yes.
Okay.
Second. Great, thank you.
Okay, thanks very much.
Okay. Next item on the agenda is the Village Boston Water Treatment Facility, 25 Reservoir Road, site plan amendment. Continuing the public hearing.
Okay, they're here, they're just in their office over there.
What's the status of this?
The public hearing is still going on, and I was asked to draft resolutions of approval, and I drafted resolutions of site plan, tree protection or tree removal permit, architectural review board approval, and based upon the status of the wetlands permit application, we need to defer that until a wetlands mitigation plan has been submitted and reviewed. So the planning board is in a position to adopt resolutions of approval regarding the site plan, the tree removal permit, and the architectural review board. And I can go over the conditions. You've had this for a little while, and in terms of the resolution of site plan approval, if you go into the document here and look on page 3, there are essentially two conditions that are specific to this application, 1A and 1B, and all of the other conditions after that are basically stock conditions that apply to every site plan approval. So prior to the endorsement of the site plan by the planning board chairman, the following conditions shall be fulfilled to the satisfaction of the planning board. A, all engineering aspects of the site plan shall be such that they meet the satisfaction of the planning board's engineering consultant. These aspects shall include but not necessarily be limited to the applicant's stormwater pollution prevention plan, SWIP, which shall conform to the New York State Department of Environmental Conservation stormwater regulations. And 1B, all governmental approvals and permits which may be required for this project, including from but not necessarily limited to the Village of Ossining, the Town of Ossining, the Westchester County Department of Health, the New York State Department of Environmental Conservation, the New York State Office of Park Recreation and Historic Preservation, the New York State Department of Health, the New York State Department of Transportation, the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, and the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency shall be obtained, and evidence of such shall be submitted to the town building and planning department. And the rest of the conditions in the resolution of site plan approval are, as I said, stock resolutions, stock conditions rather. We could go to the tree removal permit resolution. And there's essentially one project-specific condition, which is at the middle of page 3, B1. The applicant shall submit a tree replacement plan, program, and/or fee which meets the satisfaction of the planning board and the town board if necessary, and which fulfills section 183.12G of the tree protection chapter, which states, and then there's a quote directly from the from the tree protection chapter, which talks about the replacement of 1/2 of the caliper inches of trees that would be removed from the site, either replaced on site or, if allowed by the town board, to be permitted off-site, planted off-site, or if permitted by the town board to be a fee to the tree bank fund. And they can, they can kind of mix and match that. Certain number on site, certain number off site, certain amount of fee. So they'll have to conform to that. So that's the only project-specific condition in this resolution. All the other conditions are conditions that would be in any resolution of tree removal permit. And then if we move to the architectural review board approval, at the bottom of page 2, we have at the beginning of several project-specific conditions. The building inspector shall not issue a building permit for the project prior to the following conditions being fulfilled. The above specified architectural rendering shall bear a date. 2, the above specified architectural rendering shall identify the manufacturer's names and numbers of all exterior materials on the proposed building. 3, the lighting plan for the project shall bear the following notes. And there are 4, all lighting shown on this plan shall be directed and/or shielded so as to preclude objectionable glare from being observable from adjoining streets and properties. B, the outdoor light shall be LED and shall not be incandescent or halogen. C, the outdoor light shall be on motion sensors from dusk until dawn and shall not be on unless motion activated. D, the color temperature of the outdoor lighting shall be less than or equal to 3,000 degrees Kelvin. And then item or condition number 4, the landscaping plan for the project shall bear the following note. And this is our standard note saying that all plantings on the plan shall be maintained in a healthy and rigorous growing condition throughout the duration of the proposed use of the site. All vegetation not so maintained shall be replaced with new comparable vegetation at the beginning of the next growing season. And then all the rest of the conditions are stock conditions for this kind of approval.
Actually, at this point, this portion dealing with the lighting plan, wouldn't that be practically stock at this stage? I mean, we seem to be using the same phrases over and over.
Yes, yes, yeah, you're right, you're right, you're right.
Okay, does the applicant have any comments at this time to the draft? Oh, did they have a chance to look at the resolution? Draft resolution?
I think so.
Yeah, they sent
Okay.
it.
No comments at this, we are satisfied with it? Any comments on the board? Okay, are any members of the public present on this matter? Okay, seeing none. What do we,
You close the public hearing, and then I would adopt the resolutions one at a time.
okay, all right, could I have a motion to close the public hearing?
So move.
Second.
Second, no objections? Thank you, okay, for,
Make a motion to approve this, to adopt the resolution for the site plan approval.
okay, any second?
Second.
No objections?
Which one is the second?
We'll have him first and he'll do the next one, right?
Okay.
Callan, could I hear a resolution for the tree removal?
Make a motion that we adopt the resolution for the tree removal permit approval.
Okay, and Jim, you second that one? No. No?
Second.
No objections?
None.
No.
Okay, third,
Okay,
Might as
make a
well
so move that we adopt the resolution for the architectural review board approval.
any seconds?
Second.
Any objections? No. Okay. Thank you, and we'll hear from the wetland approval when it gets done. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, next on the agenda is River Knoll, multi-family development, 40 Colton Dam Road, on the preliminary final environmental impact statement and EIS review. This is not a public hearing still, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Applicants here?
Yes, my name's Nanette Bourne. I'm here on behalf of River Knoll Development. And we are in receipt of the comment letters on the preliminary final environmental impact statement from your town planner as well as your town attorney. And earlier this afternoon, I had a call with Kathy and with David about an approach for making the revisions that they are requesting. And the approach that we want to discuss tonight is for David and I to meet, and we tentatively put a target on December 21st to look at all those comments that needed fairly minor language changes to make sure that the document was written in the form of being your document, with a follow-up with a work session with the planning board at your first work session in January, which perhaps is, Sandy, is it January
16.
is the work session?
It's not a work session, but they're just meetings now, but it is January 16th.
January 16th. And if that is satisfactory, we will proceed.
Have you had a chance to see the Environmental Advisory Committee's letter?
Yes, we did receive that as well. And we will be incorporating, it is a very similar document to what we had received earlier in the year, and we will include those comments in the revised FEIS.
Would it be okay if I asked a question
Sure.
now, actually, about that? So, I haven't read that letter in 2 weeks, so I might not have all the details right, but it's right there. Well, let me just try first and see if I get it right. I seem to recall that they mentioned that they noticed that a topographical representation that was in an earlier version of the draft was not in the last draft. Do you recall them making that statement?
Right, what I think they were referring to is, which is not atypical for the seeker documents, is they referred to some exhibits. They were included in the DEIS. They were not repeated in the FEIS. They were incorporated as in reference. So in order to respond to their comments, we will make sure that they are brought forward and included in the revised FEIS.
Okay, so there will be a revised FEIS, is
Yes.
that correct?
Yes.
Would it be possible to reincorporate those since the Environmental Advisory Council was concerned?
Absolutely.
Okay, good, thank you.
Any other comments from the board? No? Okay. Any other comments from the staff?
Not at this time.
Okay, so we'll be expecting the new,
Okay, and I have one other question, and that is the status of the public hearing. Was it ever officially closed?
Oh, remember the town board needed more time and the planning board left the written comment period open?
no, it has not been closed. I don't think it's been closed.
Okay. Well, the public hearing and the comment period on the DEIS,
Right.
the draft environmental impact statement, not the FEIS that we're working on now, but the DEIS should be closed. You need to close it at a certain point in time.
Should we close it tonight?
You could, sure.
Can I have a motion to close the DEIS?
The public hearing and the written comment period on the
Right.
DEIS.
Only on that.
Right.
I'll make a motion that we close the public hearing on the DEIS.
And the written
And
comment
the
period
written comment period
on
as
the
well.
DEIS.
On the DEIS.
Okay, any second?
Second.
Any objections? No? Okay. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Next item on the agenda is the Rinaldi subdivision, 39 Songtone Road, 10-lot subdivision.
I believe that JB, who is the architect, JB Hernandez, who is the architect, would rather do a full presentation at some future meeting, maybe the next meeting, as opposed to doing a partial presentation tonight. And he, when I saw him before, he asked me to mention, if I would, that he intends to meet with the Torview Swim Club and maybe conceivably other neighbors as well in the near future.
Okay.
Would it be possible to ask for a site walk? I've driven by there, and it's a little hard to tell just exactly where it is. It's a tricky spot.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay, Sandy, you want to try to contact him?
I can do that.
I
Great.
think the Environmental Advisory Council would probably be
Want
interested
to
in that.
come too? No? Okay.
Any other comments at this time? From the board? Or the staff?
No.
And this is not a public hearing item. Right, next item, there's no members of the public here on that. Okay, just checking. Next item is the SPCA of Westchester, 590 North State Street, site plan amendment.
Good evening, members of the board and consultants. My inspector for the applicant. I have Dan Collins is with me tonight again from Hudson Engineering Consultants, and tonight I have Stephen Bednardzik. That's right. Did I get it right? Yep. From HCP Architects, who's here with to answer or respond to some of the questions about some of the architectural details. Since we were here last, we did receive comments. We did submit some revisions. We then received some comments from Frederick B. Clark Associates and relatively recently, and have been in the process of reviewing them. There are a couple of additions that we still need to make. The landscape, the lighting plan is still not complete, although we will, comply with all the requirements regarding LEDs and focus and intensity. But waiting for some feedback from the manufacturer of the fixtures. So we complete that plan for submission. And I think many of the answers, I think Dan will be able to respond to, just on a few points, which I think Dan will respond to as well. On the tree caliper calculations, it's actually...
I don't think the planning board has read that yet, probably. I'm not sure if you have read that. You may be ahead of the board. You've read it.
Yes.
You want to go over the comments first
I
before you hear the
apologize.
responses? No,
I
that's
want to
okay.
jump ahead.
That's okay, that's okay.
Sure, David, why don't you go through your comments first?
Okay. So, in the middle of page 2, although there's not a 2 at the bottom, it really is page 2, we have the provision of the tree protection law, which deals with the replacement of 50%. Let me let you find the memo first. What page did you say? Page 2. So we have our provision of the tree protection chapter, which deals with the replacement of 1/2 of the caliper inches of the trees proposed for removal. And toward the top of page 3, the applicant says that 495 caliper inches are proposed to be removed. We tally it up, we get 479. So that number needs to be checked. And there ought to be a total on that sheet, SA1, so that we have a total there. So either the replacement is either 479 inches, 247.5 inches or 239.5 inches. They're proposing to plant approximately 183 caliper inches, so there will be a deficit, and they're proposing to pay a fee to the town tree bank fund. So we need to look at those numbers. If you could just check those numbers, that would be great. And there should be a table on sheet L1 which shows how the 183 caliper inches are calculated.
I think, Dan, you could explain better,
Yes.
I believe, on the numbers once you show it.
So basically, there were a couple of trees that were on there that were, Dan Collins, Hudson Engineering, sorry. There were a couple of trees on there that were quadruple trees, that were 4 in like one group of trees that comes out of the ground, and then there were some 3 trees that comes out of the ground, there were a couple of double trees that came out of the ground. Those were basically annotated as 8-inch through 16-inch on the plat, on the table. But when we did the calculations, we broke them out into the separate trees that are coming out of the ground. I do have those numbers in Excel, so I can add them to the plan, just to back up the
great.
calculations.
Yeah, it's no big deal.
Yeah.
No big deal.
So we'll be able to give you better calculations and add it to the landscape plan, but the question will still be, what is going to be the required payment, and how
That's a very good question.
And the methodology for getting there. And I know that's, I guess, before the town board at this point.
Yes.
And so I don't know if this can be resolved in such a way that we can get eventual improvements, the approval, and with a note indicating that when...
What we did recently, Wayne, on the Santucci and Shemmer subdivision, which the planning board approved, I think at the last planning board meeting or the meeting before that, we had a condition in the resolution that said basically you've got to go to the town board and work out the number and pay that fee.
So this will require a meeting before the town board to decide? It's not going to be a standardized number?
I don't
or-
know.
We don't know yet.
But you'll agree to anything they tell.
Well, we're hoping we don't have to schedule another fundraising gala to do this, but we'll see. It's just a little bit difficult to advise, the client that it's an unknown variable, especially when we're working in such a, on a budget. It's a very tight budget for a project.
Sure.
It's a not-for-profit, as you know.
Sure.
So we hope to get some kind of clarity on that. So I don't know what the suggestion is, whether we should approach the town board now. I mean, if it's premature, or I don't know if they have time to deal with that at this point, or the ability to do it, but we'd love to get some guidance anyway, so we can know. But we'll have better figures for you. I guess you'll see it on the plans as far as the actual calipers that have to be somehow or another replaced. If there was some place to plant them elsewhere, we would certainly look at that option as well, but we don't really see it at this point. Okay?
Mhm.
So, you want to go on?
Sure. We're still looking at the site distance measurements that have been provided. Number 3 on page 3 talks about a buffer area at least 20 feet wide with native non-invasive landscape screening, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. There is that 25-foot wide landscape screening easement on the northerly property line. Our comment is that that doesn't extend along the entire length of the property line, so it doesn't appear to conform to the quoted section of the zoning law. And then the white pines that are in that area should be shown on the plan.
Yeah, we are looking at that. I'm not sure that we could actually, certainly that berm area with the trees is, was originally part of the, I guess, what we worked out with the neighboring condominium, and there were joint maintenance rights, no obligations necessarily, but just rights to go in there. And the pines are mature, and there's not as much lower growth as, as might have existed at one point. What we're exploring, and we'd like the board's, I guess, input, is the possibility of putting in some kind of a PVC fence as a screening along the line. We think that that might work better at this point. So it's not on the plans at this point, but
No, we had it and we took it off.
we originally had it, it was taken off, but we're thinking that maybe it should be added back in at this point as a reasonable method of creating some screening.
My initial reaction to that is that fencing and screening works. Vinyl, PVC fencing is not very attractive. And to have such a long stretch along, a busy road that is such a prominent part of our commercial area, I'm not sure would look so great.
I'm not so well, as far as where this fence would be.
This would be on basically the Stone Creek. It would be on the Stone Creek side, on the north side of the property. There's the existing easement that extends between the two properties.
Oh, I'm
It's
sorry,
gonna be
just
there.
between the berm?
Yeah.
or-
Right.
Okay, so you're not talking about.
Yeah, we're not
along
talking about the main
the
road. We're
road,
not, yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fine then. Thank you.
Okay,
I don't know if the board wants to opine on that,
on the pines, or?
opine on the pines versus the fence, exactly.
So actually, I did notice when I was looking at this planting plan earlier today, that the evergreens are exclusively on the south side. Why is that you don't include any on the North State Road side? I mean, that's an important part for, area for visual screening, and in the winter would be wide open.
That's shown on.
So on the left, there's nothing.
That's shown on the other plan.
Which ones?
Mitigation plan.
Oh, we do have, yeah, there are some plantings that are being, are you talking about on the north side of the dog run there?
So these are the evergreens that you propose, but this is North State Road, so all of this would be, well, I guess there's not a lot of change in there, but none of the trees that you're proposing on this side of the development is evergreen. I was just wondering,
Well, I mean, once they build
why would you?
when the building's built up, it's gonna be a lot nicer looking than what's in there now. So then you kind of wanna see a little bit of a view from the street. I mean, you'll see it in the
Oh,
winter.
so it's intentional.
Yeah. There are some low shrubs in there that are part of the maintenance plan, the mitigation plan, I'm sorry, that they did plant around the top of the stormwater berm and to the north of the dog run, just north of the parking lot there. There was going to be some mitigation plantings
So
in
there are actually two landscape plans, this plan and a second plan which is called the mitigation plan.
Oh.
So you have to look at them in concert.
All right, which one am I looking at?
It's a black and white, I think.
The black and white, okay.
I mean, this is
There
a
it is.
this is a
There it is.
business or a commercial district, so the screening and buffer is intended mainly to protect neighboring residential uses. But as a commercial use, there's some visibility that's expected or required on the commercial.
And it's an
road.
attractive building, so.
And it is an attractive building, as you'll see.
Okay.
And then the area in the front, that's all the wetlands. So there are some additional plantings that are going to be beefing that up that are part of the mitigation But we didn't really want to touch anything in that area because of the
Right.
fact that it was the wetlands. We didn't want to disturb more than we needed to.
We also don't think it's appropriate to completely hide the building. It's probably best for us not to do that, actually.
Okay, I see that now. I'm good.
Okay, so at the top of page 4, as Wayne said, we're waiting on a lighting plan. Number 5, this note still needs to go on the landscaping plan and the mitigation plan. Is there any proposed change to the freestanding signage?
No, not at the entrance?
Yes.
No, that's going to stay the same at this point. I mean, at some point in the future, if they want to come and propose a different sign, they'll come in. But at this point, there was no decision to change that sign.
Okay, if you could just take a picture of it and dimension it, show the colors and materials and any illumination so we can memorialize it on this set of site plan drawings, that'd be
Yeah.
great. The building mounted sign on the front, in order to have that sign, you would need to get a variance from the zoning board of appeals because it exceeds 2 feet in height.
Yeah, I mean, the sign that's proposed, it's actually, you know, it's two lines actually in a sense of lettering. And I can understand, you know, limitation if you're limiting the size of the lettering. Did Club Fit have to get a variance because their sign obviously, I mean, I just was curious because we drove by
I don't
it.
remember when.
And the sign
Don't
is
remember.
bigger, I believe, than the sign is, and we didn't think it was gonna be a problem. The sign, I mean, obviously would prefer not to have to, if there was a method other than, you know, or interpretation other than having to go for a variance would be helpful, but because the sign itself is really, you know, it's not that prominent that's being proposed, but.
I don't see how you could interpret it to be less than 2 feet, or 2 feet or less in height.
No.
I'm not suggesting it needs to be smaller, but it just doesn't conform to the zoning law.
I guess I'll have to discuss it with my client and see if they are willing to go with the smaller sign. It's a big building, it's set back.
I don't think it should be smaller.
You don't?
No.
I mean, it's set back, basically, when you drive by the Club Fit building,
I
basically the
I
setback
think
about the
it's
same
appropriate.
distance. So when you're driving by, it's gonna be, otherwise, if it's any smaller, it would
I
just
think it's
kind of
gonna look
disappear.
odd if it's small, especially in that
So
location.
we have a little conflict here that on the architectural side, you're saying, you know, what I'm hearing is that the appropriate size from an architectural and aesthetic point of view is the size that's proposed or something similar. But that does not, apparently that conflicts with your, you know, with some zoning here, so it pushes us in a position where, if I'm hearing it correctly, that you would prefer the bigger sign. At least one member of the board would say that, and I don't know how the rest of the board feels about it. So I don't know what other choices we have.
I think it looks right to me, but it doesn't conform to the zoning law. So, as you know, Wayne, having sat here for, what, 300 years?
I don't know any.
Next to me. You know, this is an administrator board that can't
I understand.
say, so.
I'm perfectly happy with the zoning board making a ruling on it.
Thank you. I know it's a good board, and I'm sure that, I guess we have to, like I said, discuss it internally, and certainly an opinion from your board approving, or at least, or agreeing that it's an appropriate size for the building, and given the scale, might be helpful. Maybe move it.
The thing is, there's other options available as well. You could put another smaller sign that's further up, closer to the road, that wouldn't have to be so large, therefore not having to need the big sign on top of the building. I mean, there's a lot of ways you can play this. I personally don't have a particular objection to the sign like that, but I could see the point of saying that it's a zoning board's purview.
All right, like I said, I have to approach my client, decide, and I'll have to discuss it with their design professionals and make a decision based on that, and see what the alternatives are.
I have a question. Do you have a rendering anywhere of the entryway where your current chain link fence is? I don't see it, but I might be overlooking it.
I don't
You
believe
do
so.
not.
I don't think
It's
so.
not. Okay. What are your intentions for replacing the chain link fence? I assume that that's not what you're planning to keep, since that's probably the least attractive of everything there currently.
I don't recall what we decided on that. I don't believe there was any decision made to remove it or to leave it. So I guess by default, it was, decided to keep it.
That would be surprising.
Yeah, they need it for security reasons, or
I
else.
can see it, that you want a gate for security reasons. That's a really unattractive fence, I must say. Is there,
Probably one on the driveway over here.
yeah, right at the driveway. Is there any way that you
Maybe
could
use
consider
one that's just
putting in a
6-foot
more
high black
attractive?
vinyl chain link fence? Would that work, or?
Again, it goes back to replacing what we want to replace or the cost
Budget.
of that. I get, the practicalities is that we are working under a very tight budget, and it is a not-for-profit and relies very heavily on fundraising for the project. And so there are budgets, and, I think money needed to be spent on environmental, engineering issues, architectural. So where they could save money and keep what exists, they chose to do so. Obviously, I'm sure there were other things that probably would have been on the wish list as well, which unfortunately had to be compromised.
Okay.
So they're doing the best they can to come in with a project that's going to be attractive, useful, serve a very important purpose.
I accept that. If you're not gonna change it, then that's fine. If you were proposing something and we didn't see it, I would wanna see it, that's all.
Thank you.
Any other comments on the board? Quick.
Okay, there are just a couple more comments. Item number 6, the EAF needs to be updated and submitted to the planning board regarding the disposal of animal waste, which is,
I did it, I just didn't. I believe I added that in there, maybe I didn't clarify the section.
I didn't get an updated EAF
All
at all.
right, and then I'll,
Was it not in the,
it should have been in the PDFs, at least in the PDFs that were submitted.
It's no big deal. I mean,
Yeah, I have it in here.
just a little homework.
Yeah.
Essentially, what you say in your letter is that all the waste is going to be picked up immediately and disposed of properly.
Yes.
So that note should go on the plan, and
Absolutely.
yeah, it's not a big deal.
Sure.
And then,
And our Dan has been talking to your Dan as well about the engineering aspects of how we're gonna handle this process as well.
good. And then the Westchester County Department of Planning talks about a sidewalk along the frontage and making that continuous. Is that your intention?
I think we actually agreed
Yeah,
to do
it was
that, so.
The only section that wasn't, they built the sidewalk in front of the property, they built the sidewalk obviously in front of the store, and they just kind of stopped it and they never connected it between the landscaped island that goes between where the pump station is and our access driveway.
Right.
I mean, that's not a big deal, just 16 foot of 5 foot wide sidewalk. It'll end up being on our property,
Mhm.
just the way that it ends up, but it's not a big deal.
So you're going to take care of that?
Yes.
Okay, and then, not tonight necessarily, but if you could just respond to the environmental assessment form should respond to the items contained in the DEC's letter of November 19th. And that's it.
Now, we also, since our architect is here, if you'd like to at all question or view some of the architectural details, he did bring some sample boards with him, so he could explain as well since we're here.
Yeah, we provided the rendering with the different materials called out, and just wanted to bring you guys physical samples of the materials so you can see it in person and kind of match it up with what you have on paper.
Could you point to the items that you're actually using on the sample?
Yes, this is the architectural stone that you see on the front facade around the entry area. This would be the architectural shingle.
Sorry, I can't see any of it.
You can pass it around.
Sure.
You can just hold it up, or prop it on a chair. Prop it on a chair.
You
Yeah,
can,
just prop it up on a chair. You could turn it around for the camera as well. Just for a moment, yeah, that's fine.
For dramatics?
like the fourth wall.
General
So this is the architectural stone at the front entry. To go along with that, with some accent areas, we have the standing seam roof above the front entry and flanking the left and right sides. The majority of the building is horizontal siding, which would be the Pro Gray. It's just a hardy cement product. And then the remaining part of the facade is vertical board and batten hardy planks. So it would be larger planks with vertical battens, vertical trim pieces.
The vertical strip pieces would be the same material?
Same color and material, correct. Yep. This is the architectural shingle that would go on the gable end roof there at the front entry. It's hard to, you don't really see it in that main rendering, so we provided one that shows kind of a small shot in the right-hand corner there.
Which is the color one that you're using?
These are all the colors that they provide. This is the color that we selected.
Oh, sorry, which one?
The lower.
The lower.
Yeah,
The lower one.
This
Okay.
lower half, yep.
Right, that's fine.
I also have, we have some storefront at the main entry. That would be a Conair system, an aluminum storefront system, and that's black. And to go along with that, we have the Anderson windows for the remainder of the building, which is black as well to match. We have timber accents that I don't have a physical sample of, but that's a Douglas fir product that would be stained to match what you see in the rendering.
That sounds nice, the timber accents.
Okay, any questions on the board?
Yeah, so it occurs to me to ask whether the SPCA, as part of this project, has considered solar panels on the substantial roof area, either for your own use or leasing your roof to some of the solar panel lease arrangements that are now common in Westchester. It might be a way to make some money for the SPCA.
I don't know if that's been discussed, but I'm certainly happy to communicate to the board. I don't know if the current administration is aware of options for that or not. You know, I certainly do know that it's not uncommon to have these arrangements, whether it's for their use or there's some kind of financing, leasing arrangement as well. But you know, I'll certainly mention it to them and mention the fact that the board member was very interested.
That'd be great.
Okay.
I think
I can't tell you that any decision could be made, you know, very quickly on this, because you know this is going to involve proposals and discussions, I guess. But I think from an architectural standpoint, I don't think there's any. You tell me if there's any issues. Would be any issues on with the roof loads? Or
It's just we explore the options with different clients, and there's a significant upfront cost, and there's maintenance issues to the roof. And at the end of the day, after exploring and doing all the proposals, typically don't end up going that route.
But it was brought up.
We talked about it briefly, but I don't know if there was any exploration, further exploration to see the actual costs.
And coincidentally, this board has in front of it another plan by a solar farm that is considering coming into Ossining. And it might be worth trying to get you guys to talk to one another if they're looking for, you know, other opportunities. The solar exposure of this site is really excellent, being right next to the highway that's all open to the south. And if any structural modifications to the roof would be needed, now would be the time to think about that.
Sure.
So, yeah, if you could bring that up with your client, that would be terrific. And I can't speak for the board, obviously,
Well,
but
it certainly wouldn't
I know
conflict
that
with-
they are generally interested in encouraging solar in the town.
When we given the design features here, it doesn't seem like a solar panel would actually conflict too much with the rest of the design. I mean, you already have black accents on the building as already.
But most of it would be facing away from this side anyway. It would be almost invisible from this view.
Well, the only thing I could add is that if it's going to significantly, or if it's going to add to the cost, the construction costs up front, that could pose an issue for them, given
Right.
their budget.
I would totally understand that.
Working under a type, I mean,
Yeah.
I've had limited exposure, some exposure to some aspects of the solar industry. I mean, I think you have a very well thought of solar company right on North State Road as well, but, and I'm sure that opportunities exist, but I have no idea what the financial ramifications of these are, upfront costs versus long-term returns. So I just don't know the answer to that right now, and I don't know if it's going to, I don't know if it's going to match. But like I said, it's a worthy discussion, and to the extent that something can be either considered or thought about right now, then maybe this is a good time to do it.
Okay.
So thank you.
Thank you.
Do you want to try getting some of these solar providers outside of this application to either give us a session to explore what possibilities are, so that we can look into this in the future?
Sure. For general purposes, not
General
for
purpose,
this.
not for this application.
Yeah, I'd be happy to do that.
All right.
In conjunction with
Yes.
Okay. What do we have to do with this, David, at this point? Can we be able to set up a public hearing
You
page?
certainly could, yes.
That would be great.
Okay. So could I have a resolution opening up the public hearing so that we could ready start?
I'll make that resolution. To open a public hearing.
Okay. And date certain would be. What date?
Next meeting? Okay, enough time to advertise, Sandy?
Yeah.
First meeting?
December 19th.
Well, we have a submission, what's the submission date for that meeting?
Well, the location of the parking lot's not gonna change, the location and size of the building's not gonna change. I'm not sure how much more you need.
Submission is Monday.
I'm not sure how much, I'm assuming that.
Right.
I'm assuming that there's a lot of homework to do, or some homework to do. I'm not sure you need to do a new submission prior to the public hearing. It's up to the planning board.
I think
Maybe
there's
you should
enough
just
here.
put it on for January, or do you want to, is there some urgency to get it in for December?
No, well, there's, time, it's helpful to move this along as quickly as we can for a lot of reasons, but I just want to make sure we're on, December.
The general layout, I mean, obviously, if that's what everybody's gonna be looking at, that's not gonna change. All the there's a little things, obviously, that would change. Regards to the memos from Dan, there was a memo from Dan that has some minor things that need to change.
Dan, do you want to
So the
expand
first meeting-
on your memo?
If you'd like me to, sure.
Okay.
Before you get off the public hearing,
No, well, Dan, just to hear Dan's memo.
Yeah, I also need to check with the executive director, because I know she's gonna want to be at the meeting, and I want to make sure she's available as well as, some of the other key personnel that I think are gonna need to be at the meeting, so.
I don't think there's time, what Sandy's
Yeah,
saying,
Sandy's
to
saying-
really notice it for the 19th, because
Right,
we
so why don't we
have to.
look forward to January, just so that everybody's on. we're not
I think that
panicking.
would be probably the best.
Okay.
and the first meeting is the third.
January
January
16th.
January 6th.
This way we can try to have.
January
see
16th?
the
Yes.
January 16th is fine. This way we'll have whatever additions that we need, the landscape plan, how can be modified.
And what's the submission deadline for this? That's the 3rd?
Yes.
What's the submission deadline for the 16th?
I actually don't have that calendar, but probably the 31st.
31st?
Yeah, holiday,
Yeah, it's a holiday.
around that week of the
Okay.
31st.
Dan, you want to go into your comments?
Sure. All right, based on the latest plans and the SWIP we received, we're asking to provide a copy of the recorded easement agreement or other documentation that provides the terms and conditions of the easement along the northern border of the property, which the board just touched on. I think we need to know what's allowed, what's not allowed, and perhaps whether the board wants to expand The improvement plans call out, there's a guy rail on the top of the proposed retaining wall. It indicates it will be constructed by others. It appears the SPCA should be responsible for installing protection above the wall. Item 3, provide the location of the 100-year floodplain on the utility plan. 4, provide a tabulation of how the 8,000 gallon per day sewage flow was estimated. The applicant should also analyze existing water consumption and use this as a basis to compute future flows for comparison. 5, the outdoor kennels should not daylight to nearby watercourses. These areas should be connected to the sewer and the flow added to the sewage flow estimates. 6, show the location of the existing sewer on the utility plan. 7, the water department should review the proposed connection and may recommend the existing domestic service be abandoned. 8, silt should follow existing contours where possible. 9, the detail sheet only has information on one of the hydrodynamic separator data. Rather, data for both separators should be provided. And finally, 10, the separated treating watershed 1A may require a bypass structure or a larger unit.
Have you had a chance to see these?
Yes, I saw, actually, before the meeting, I had a chance to go over them. They're all addressable, they're all straightforward.
Great.
Nothing that's gonna change anything.
Excellent.
So Dan, the easement agreement you're referring to is the berm agreement?
Right. It shows on the plan, but sort of there's nothing to,
I have a copy of it.
Memorializes what the deal is.
I have a copy which I pulled off the county, but which I'll send to you.
Oh, okay.
Okay, if I can email it to you.
Yeah, it'd be fine.
But it's, private easement agreement between the, SPCA and the neighborhood condominium.
Yeah, I think the board should just be aware
Sure,
of
sure.
what the deal is.
So he should send that to Sandy, right?
I'll send that to Sandy. I'll email it to you tomorrow.
Okay, any other comments from the staff?
There's just one other housekeeping item that the DEC raised. We have preliminarily typed this as an unlisted action, but it's actually, the site's contiguous to the Taconic State Parkway, which the DEC says is on the State and National Register of Historic Places, so it should really be a type 1 action, not an unlisted action. So probably just want to determine that this is a type 1 action.
Okay. Any objections to having it type 1 action?
What's the
What is that?
proximity to the Taconic?
It says it's,
There might be an error, because
I think they're making a mistake.
the old Route 100 was probably acquired at a different time. The Parkway, when they took the right-of-way, has all the baggage that goes with the Parkway Authority. But
so, okay.
you may want to look into that.
I don't know if that's an issue, then.
Wasn't the parkway expanded at some point, I think? From a
But
2-lane to a 3-lane around there?
It was, but there was the original right-of-way at the Bronx Parkway Authority that has all the parkland baggage that goes with it. Whereas Route 100 is probably an old state highway that they may have not acquired. I don't know if it's worth it to research it.
Well, we don't seem to believe that it's gonna have any practical impact on the application, so.
It's academic, don't
Right.
worry about it.
Okay.
I think it's an error, but I don't think they're right.
Well, if you don't feel comfortable taking the action tonight, we could look into it and I'll, advise you.
I don't want to slow me down.
It's not gonna slow
Well,
anything
I
down.
mean, we certainly would prefer that it remained an unlisted action, but if it's possible that a mistake was made, then as far as challenging.
Why don't we look into it?
Let me-
Okay, I appreciate
Let's
that.
review.
Let's not resolve it tonight.
Okay. Well, it's not gonna change the public hearing schedule.
Right, and as I mentioned on the phone, the criteria for determining whether this should result in a negative declaration or a positive declaration, the criteria is exactly the same whether it's an unlisted action or a type 1 action.
Okay.
That's it.
Yeah.
Very good,
There's a
okay.
presumption for a type 1 action, but you can certainly still end up in a negative declaration even for a type 1 action.
Right, and just for clarity, we might as well just resolve it anyway when we have time to do that. But the applicant already has a copy of the DEC letter, right?
Yes,
Okay.
thank you.
I can mail that up to General Code. Second, you can get it now. I have to look at it.
No other comments from the board at this time? Okay, any other comments from the staff? Were there any members of the public present for this matter? No. Seeing none? Okay, thank you. I think we already have a resolution. We'll see you in January.
Thank you so much, and enjoy the holiday, everybody.
You too.
Happy holidays. Next item on the agenda is the learning experience, 530 North State Road, site plan amendment, continuing the public hearing.
Good evening.
Okay, has the applicant had chance to look at the comments from the staff?
Yeah, yes, we have. They're really very minor. I think that there were two minor comments as they related to the traffic. Our traffic engineer is here this evening. Maybe, Frank, you would just kind of come up with a comment.
Okay, well, before you do that, then why don't David, you want to go through those items on the traffic?
Yeah, actually, I'm not sure you have to really respond to the first one. On page 3 primarily, we mentioned that, there are two ways of measuring site distance, SIGHT, site distance. One is intersection site distance, where the car is basically facing the street in the mouth of the driveway. You're looking to the right, you're looking to the left, and you have to be able to see sufficiently to the right and the left. Another is stopping site distance, where a car is coming down the road, and you have to measure the distance that car would need to see somebody pulling out and be able to stop and not hit the person pulling out of the driveway. So if intersection site distance, the first method is not able to be achieved, you can go to the second method, stopping site distance. In this case, when they measure the intersection site distance, it goes over private property. And since there are no easements on that private property to keep that property cleared, it doesn't really meet, from our point of view, intersection site distance. But it does meet stopping site distance. So we're suggesting they take the intersection site distance measurements off the drawing and just leave the stopping site distance measurements on the drawing, which are met, so it's fine. They just have to take off the intersection site distance. And the other comment is that we think that the radii on the driveway should be such that they meet the standard for an SU-30 design vehicle, a truck, good-sized truck. Those are our only comments.
So I believe the exhibit that's up on the screen reflects the alternate stopping distances. It's an update of the exhibit. And then as far as the turning radii, the site is actually designed to accommodate it now. We'll just provide clarification on the drawings. And we'd be happy to do that as an update or a condition of the approval, should you move in that direction. So I think with those two comments, we've essentially at this point addressed all the board's concerns and comments. We've gone through the environmental issues as they relate to the stream. Our consultant has worked with yours to, I think, really develop quite a nice buffer of local and proper plantings for it to protect it and restore and repair some of the stream bed that's been really neglected and damaged over many years. We've taken your advice on the architectural design of the building as it relates to we'll say the shorter facade that faces North State Road. We've amended that. We showed you that at the previous hearing. We've also taken your advice on how to light the signs. We've taken away the internal lighting, and now we have external lighting. I believe you have a negative declaration, which we hope you'll vote on this evening, and if you can do that, then we'll be at the zoning board. We're scheduled to be there on, I guess, Monday, December 17th. And for the signs, which we feel fairly confident that we'll get because they're designed in accordance with your suggestions, and then we hope to be back here on the following hearing. We would hope tonight that you would authorize Mr. Stolman to prepare all the approval exhibits and resolutions.
So at the last planning board meeting, you asked me to draft a negative declaration, which I did, and which you have. It's a 2-page form with about 9 pages of narrative as an attachment. So I guess this went out last Friday. So if you've had a chance to take a look at that, we don't need to necessarily go through it, and you can adopt that tonight if you so desire. So They can go to the zoning board of appeals, hopefully get their signage variances, and come back to this board.
Any comments from the board at this time?
I'm comfortable with that.
I am too.
I am too.
Sounds good.
So you need to adopt by, the neg deck by resolution.
Any other comments from the staff? Yeah. Great, can I have a resolution?
I'll make a motion that we accept adopt the negative declaration with respect to this matter.
Okay, any second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Any objections?
No.
And Gene, there's a place for you to sign this above my signature on the second page of the form when you get a chance.
Okay, do you have an original?
I think I might be holding the original here, but I marked it up. I think a copy is just as good.
All right, fine.
And if you so desire, you can authorize me to draft resolutions of approval for the next meeting, assuming that they get their variance or variances from the zoning board of appeals.
Okay.
Will you be closing the public hearing?
I think
Not
you
yet.
probably want to leave it open.
We're gonna wait until the
To the zoning board.
Yes.
Okay.
Can you remind me what the variance application is for?
The signage.
Oh, it's for the sign.
For the signage, just the signage, that's all.
And we have complete faith in the zoning board.
I think the building, if I remember correctly, I think the building inspector deemed the blocks, which brace the front entrance as signage.
Ah, yeah, so there's a canopy, yes.
Right. I like those.
So, thank you.
I hope they approve.
Yeah, I do
But
too.
it is a sign.
But it is a sign.
It's like-
They're columns.
The columns.
So I think that's pretty much it for tonight.
Okay.
Yeah,
So
okay, we'll see you come.
So you have, just for my clarity, so you've authorized your planner to prepare resolutions?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, they do it telepathically.
I see, okay, I didn't hear something.
I heard it.
Thank
I
you very
heard it.
much for your time this evening.
You bet.
Look forward to seeing you in a couple of weeks and hopefully wrapping it up.
Thank you.
Have a good holiday.
You too.
Take care.
Okay, let's cover the minutes at this time, I believe.
I looked it over and I think I misread it. You
made
made
a
a
change,
change,
right?
right? Yeah.
We heard tonight that he's doing the stone
doing it.
walls everywhere.
We're good.
So we're good.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
So I guess we still should.
Do we have two,
But I'm hoping
two sets of
that-
minutes?
Yeah, we have an October 3rd one that has been held over. You see, good things come to people who wait. All right, can I have a motion to adopt the minutes or any amendments we need for October 3rd?
So move that we adopt the minutes for October 3rd and November 7th,
Right,
2008.
let's do it separately.
Okay.
Because, yeah, it's October 3rd one, actually, Carolyn, you weren't here yet, so.
Okay, so somebody else has to do that. Somebody should do both of them. Sorry.
Oh, no, I didn't.
Jeff? Okay, so a motion to adopt the October 3rd minutes. You were,
So moved.
Second.
okay, no objections. October 3rd minutes are adopted. Can I have a motion to adopt the November 7th?
So moved.
Any changes to it, other than changing my name? The first paragraph.
Did I mix up your name? I'm sorry.
With that typo, but otherwise.
Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry.
It's like people call me Uncle Ching, you know, it's like, doesn't quite work. Okay, so, no objections, other than that amendment? Okay, great, thank you. Any items, any other items? Okay, motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Any objections? Okay, thank you.
Got a lot done tonight.
Yeah.